All right, I hope people can hear me because I'm having technical issues again with Urglaawe with Facebook Live. Go figure. So now I'm on my phone. Let's see if I can even see myself in the chat room now. I see Victoria found me. All right. I gotta tell you, this is getting frustrating. Every week, there's something else wrong with that Facebook Live thing. All right, let me see if I can see myself. I guess I can. Alrighty. So now let me open my PowerPoint. Oh, you all can hear me? Okay, good. All right. So, well, since I have access to my computer unfettered now, I guess I can post links in the file section of the Urglaawe group. Is a file that if you didn't download it, you might want to. It's for tonight's discussion, which actually may go on into next week, because this is actually pretty a lot of information on all this. So let me start over. So first thing I actually wanted to talk about is actually before we start talking about the I'll find some way to balance this. Before we start talking about the actual herbs, I wanted to point out a couple of conversations that we've been having this week that people might find interesting. One here is this book called Heart Language by Susan Colstock Hill. It's about the Pennsylvania Dutch author Elsie Singmaster, who actually was a pretty accomplished woman. She did a lot throughout her life. She is actually it appears that my great grandfather and she shared the same grandfather. So it appears that's how far back we are related by the Galmers. I still have to actually research that, but that appears to be that. But it's pretty interesting because here you have a woman writing a lot of poetry and just general fiction and prose, actually some nonfiction, about her life as a Dutch woman in I would say like roughly from the 1860s up until the 1950s. I can't remember her exact birthday, but that might be one that people might find interesting. And this one I just got. We've been talking about this one, the Phantom Armies of the Night. So now that the Wild Hunt is over, we're going to spend time actually researching the Wild Hunt. Go figure. But I think that will be an interesting topic for a lot of people to read. I can't wait to read it. Some of you have already said that you have it. So if you have it, you can. We wouldn't mind somebody doing a book review. Maybe for Holleberghof, you can talk to Sophia Grab about that. She might be more than willing to give folks a space to write something up. All right, now just so you know, since I'm on my phone, it's even more difficult for me to see any comments. It's good. If you have comments or questions or anything, please in the Urglaawe group, there is a little entry spot there that I made a thread for just that. Unfortunately, this Facebook Live thing just drives me nuts. All right, so again, if you didn't get the file, it's in the file section of the Urglaawe group, and it is the PowerPoint handout for the 9 sacred herbs, or the Neine, Heiliche, Gegreider from Urglaawe, the 9 sacred herbs of Urglaawe. And so I guess we may as well get started unless anybody has a particular question right off the bat. Okay, I don't see anything right away, so here we go. All right. So about this is slide number 2, I guess. About this discussion. Wait. The title of which book, Rhonda? The second one or the first one? The second one is Phantom Armies of the Night by Claude Leconteur. I can probably grab that for a second. So, and I'm pretty sure somebody will end up posting in a link to it. So this was originally a presentation at Sacred Space that I did in 2018, I guess. I'm not sure. But this one definitely comes directly from Brauerei, and is it's actually very interesting. And for those of you who may have made your Butzaman already, you already have your herbs. And I haven't made my Butzaman yet, which is kind of sad for one of the people who actually leads this whole thing to not have made his Butzaman yet. But my Butzaman is the body is on order. It should be here tomorrow. And then I'm gonna end up making my Butzaman by the end of the day tomorrow, and then registering my Butzaman's name with Victoria or Michelle, whoever's handling that now, to make sure that his lineage is passed down. But I actually started thinking, maybe I have a whole bunch of these herbs out here. Maybe I should make a Butzaman that consists mostly of the 9 sacred herbs. I would not put elder unless it's elderflower. Please do not put elder in a Butzaman, because when the Butzaman gets burned, you would have to burn the elder, and that is a no-no. So, all right. So, a little brief history of Brauerei and Hexerei. Now, I don't know how to pronounce this. You have to excuse me. The Lachnunga describes the 9 sacred herbs according to the Anglo-Saxons. They list mugwort, cockspur grass, lamb's cress, plantain, mayweed, nettle, crabapple, thyme, and fennel. And but now ours is a little bit different, and we're going to see as we go along. So, not so well known is the fact that we Dutch have our own 9 sacred. What makes them sacred? It's generally their use in medicine, or sympathetic magic, or in spiritual intervention. Michelle, what you missed is that that you're taking on the Butzaman recording names. Let's see. So let's see. Moving on to slide number, what is this, 4? Slide 5. 3 groups of 3. So we group the 9 sacred herbs as 3 groups of 3. 3 from the woods, 3 from the fields, and 3 from the gardens. You are never to take from from a stand that you see, the largest, the smallest, or the first one that you see, and you should never uproot the grossmami, or the grandmother plant from that all the other plants come from, and always leave offerings in return for taking. The offerings that most of us tend to leave the traditional offering is 3 beans. If you disrupt the soil, you're supposed to leave 3 beans in the area that you did. If you do a whole lot of gardening, break it down into different sections and offer beans in each section. The beans actually are nitrogen fixers, so it actually helps the soil. And that's pretty much traditional. Let's see. Yes, only for our kindred. All right, so from the woods, from the Wald, the first one is dogwood, called Hundsholz in Dutch. And it's a cornus species, various species of cornus. The part particularly that is used is the bark. Its traditional use was for typhus and typhoid. The differences between the two were not really delineated in Blantse Heilkunst, or Dutch herbalism, or in Dutch medicine in general. But the location of it was actually differentiated. Whether it was typhoid or typhus, if it was in the head, it was called Herrn fever, and if it were in the rest of the body, it was called base fever. Herrn fever literally translates to brain fever, and base fever literally translates to the angry fever, and they were treated differently. Base fever referred specifically to typhus and typhoid again, while Herrn fever also could have included bacterial cerebral meningitis. So that term Herrn fever kind of had it was either typhus, typhoid, or bacterial cerebral meningitis. So the herbs varied somewhat from the head to the body. Herrn fever treatment often included dogwood, cat's claw, and olive leaf, while base fever often included dogwood, apple cider vinegar, and garlic. And a decoction of the bark of dogwood was used as a decoction against hemorrhoids. The leaves of dogwood Can help to reduce eczema and other skin conditions, but I still need to kind of test that one out myself. Kills ringworm when used in conjunction with ringworm charms. The fruit of the dogwood, the hundsberry, or the dogberry, is good for the liver and is added to teas as a remedy for diarrhea. And it was a natural emetic in quantity, so if they had to make somebody throw up for some reason, they could give them an ample supply of dogwood berries, and they would eventually throw up. And it also has antimicrobial properties. So let's see. This is now slide number 9. Protection is another reason. The shavings or the cuttings were often used as amulets or put in amulets, and the flowers were used to break hexes. There is a forbode on, actually there's multiple forbodes on dogwood's use. Dogwood is not to be cut for decorative purposes, which is a very strange to many people, but that's a living tradition still among many Dutch folks. That if you cut dogwood, it's supposed to be used medicinally, or either medicinally or for spiritual purposes, whatever. But it's not supposed to be simply decoration. And throughout my life, I'm trying to think if I've ever really seen dogwood actually used as a decoration somewhere. I really haven't. So let's see. Now, the other thing that this is puzzling too, but offerings of dogwood are acceptable to deities, but not to ancestors or land spirits. That's another interesting one. Yes. Thank you, Sophia. I'm going to also verbalize this. This information is for educational and discussion purposes only. Nothing in these posts or chats is intended to replace any advisement or take the place of any medical professional. So in other words, if you have an issue before you use dogwood, make sure you consult with your medical professional, licensed in your state, et cetera, et cetera. But then also, so it's kind of strange that dogwood cannot be offered to ancestors or land spirits, but can be to deities. And also, you're supposed to leave the tree intact so as much as possible is available for medicinal uses. I'm guessing that some of these forbodes came from the time when typhus and typhoid were really making their rounds, and so people wanted to make sure that the medicine was available as much as possible. All right, moving on to elder. This is now slide number 10. I'm going on to slide number 11, but elder is known as elder in English, obviously, hollebeer or hollesberries in Dutch, but there's also other names, hollebaar, but the holenbaar, there's numerous versions of it, but we say hollebeer. And the Latin name is Sambucus nigra, although Sambucus canadensis would also work, and actually most elderberries tend to have some similar properties. People often think that the American one is poisonous for some reason, but it is no more toxic than than black elder is. So this is one of our most sacred trees, and it is it's actually almost getting overused today. We were actually having this discussion a bit yesterday about how Sambucus nigra is a powerful herb. It's a powerful berry, but there are some things that it should not necessarily be used with, and I'm going to go into this in a minute. But so it is sacred to Holla. Matter of fact, it is the manifestation of Holla in this realm, essentially. It can be replaced by Sambucus canadensis. The green inner bark may be used to combat burns, which is interesting in itself, when combined with fresh sheep manure and unsalted, unwashed butter. So if you have a burn, make sure you got your sheep manure handy, and make sure you have your unsalted, unwashed butter. But it is also considered nature's medicine chest, primarily because it is a powerful herb used to combat some flus, colds, etc. It is antiviral. Coughs, colds, flus. This is now slide number 12. The flowers can be used for allergies. It increases sweating. It's an anti-inflammatory. The berries are high in vitamin C. They can help with rheumatism, and they are food as medicine. They are taken in many forms except smoked because, again, the only part of elder that you can really burn is the flowers, particularly the spent flowers. The blossoms are an antitoxin. They can aid in against ergotism, and the overall the flowers and the berries can be helpful with arthritis. Sympathetic uses: chewing on a twig can help to alleviate many of the things we just said. Just chewing on the twig, that's also supposed to help with toothache. Kissing under elder is supposed to bring good luck and blessings to a couple that's working to get married. But it also is supposed to be able to help if a healthy person kisses an unhealthy person, their positive energy is supposed to be able to transfer over to the sick person. Tools may be fashioned from elder to bring its power to all workings. I think the elder wand from Harry Potter. Then the roots of all elder bushes lead to dunkelgeg, and that comes straight out of our folklore. With the sprudendi, gvellendi, and fliesendi, those are the three little springs there at Hexenkopf, the bubbling, the brimming, and the flowing. That's what their names translate to, and the brimming, bubbling, and flowing. And they're supposed to lead down to the dunkelgegen, at least as part of our metaphors for the passages between the realms. There is definitely a forbot on burning, and I can't stress this enough because burning elder is essentially like burning hola, and the exceptions are exceptions that let's note here. One exception is in certain rituals that are too hola, you actually can do it. Theoretically, a well-worked alalivatio could end up with the berries being burned, and actually we have burned them already, but definitely kind of shy away from the leaves with that one. And then let's see. Also, for burning the flowers, especially the spent flowers, are acceptable to burn at any time. The flowers that are not spent, if they were cut off the tree in the right way, which would be, it's kind of funny because you could bring a little bit of Erda's ban in here, that you're not supposed to cut the if you're going to use the flowers for a ritual, for anything other than like making flower tea or something. If you're going to be burning the flowers, please don't use iron to cut the flowers off. The same for boat relates to digging up elder. You're not supposed to use iron to dig up elder, which generally the iron for boat goes pretty strongly with vervain and the goddess Erda, but in this case it applies also to elder. One of the things, let's make sure if I have this in here. All right. Okay, I'm going to actually continue, and then I'll circle back to some of the other things about Holobear that need to be transmitted. We're going to move on to slide number 14, excuse me. It's a sacred libation consumed at Braucherei guild gatherings. When I was being trained as a Braucher, one of the first things I attended was our Yule ritual, and the Yule ritual is very much like an Urglaawe Samal, very, very close actually, and but it was elderberry rob that was like elderberry syrup elixir that was passed around as the drink, and so that we actually continue that to a degree, although we have some elderberry drinks that have alcohol, and because I don't drink, we have some that were non-alcoholic, like the elderflower stuff that we get from Whole Foods. That stuff's really good, and we might be able to put up it's non-alcoholic, so we might be able to put up a link to that somewhere along the way. Elder is a guardian plant also, and I have to tell you that this part, I actually do this part, not so much the hair, but definitely the nail clippings. When you have your hair cut, if you don't trust your barber, which I do, or when you cut your nails, the lore is supposed to be that the lore actually is that you take the cuttings and you put them under an elder bush. You hail Hola, and that she will protect them. There is a possible connection, actually, believe it or not, possible, very kind of distant, but it sort of fits in a way that that the ship that I guess Loki's army is made of fingernail clippings, fingernail and toenail clippings when they attack the gods, and that the removal of this, of our fingernails and toenails and placed in the guardianship of Hola is supposed to help in that regard. I think that that's a connection that's accidental more than anything, but the real reason I think you're supposed to be putting your fingernail clippings and hair clippings under Hola's protection is to keep them from being used by other people to curse you, hex you, whatever, which is far more in line with our typical lore. But the fingernail and toenail story is kind of cool with the ship because, if we put it in Hola's care anyway, then it won't happen either way. Now, Elder is also used in amulets with almost any intention. It is a very strong at holding intentions and then pushing them back out again. People I know have made amulets out of Elder, and they've had some pretty good luck increasing their protection or feeling protected, whether it's placebo or not. It might help. Yeah, that's it right there. Now, Naglfar. Trazir Holdersman just put up the link to that story, and Michelle just put up a link to the Belvok. Can't talk to him. Let's see. Then the next one, Guiding Souls to the Mill. That is Elder. Again, that's part of Elder. That's the use of Gegreider Eckhart taking leading the armies up to the Elder, and then having the Wild Hunt follow him. I think he actually stays up there. Follow the Elder routes down into the mill, and then Hola sends them through. No, actually, he does. He leads them through the mill, leads them down the Elder to Dunkelgegen, and then he sends them through the mill. Cemetery uses. Many cemeteries in the Daichorai actually have Elder on the periphery or just outside, sometimes inside, which ours used to, but for some reason it didn't have any, so I actually planted some up there. It's, again, for the souls to be able to go back down into the Dunkelgegen, and then also it is supposed to be a way for you to communicate with the dead. So having them at the cemetery, particularly the nights in particular they say that are good for communicating with the dead, are the first night of Alla Livetsil, which would end up being Halloween, overnight that night. Then also Groundhog Day and Wonnet. So those are supposed to be 3 auspicious times to communicate with the dead via Elder. And there is similar lore in many European cultures. Okay, so let's see. There was something I was going to say about Elder, and it's coming to my mind right now. Elder is definitely a very strong antiviral, but there are some diseases that you don't necessarily. You actually kind of want the inflammation, or you want the temperature, or you want a little bit of the of your body's reaction, because by quashing it, you actually pave the way for the virus to become stronger. One of these is a great example was the Spanish flu of 1918. The Spanish flu of 1918, most of the traditional remedies that people used for a flu actually were not particularly helpful. They actually ended up making the patient weaker. And so the Braukers, some say that they figured it out themselves, but others say that some might have figured it out themselves, but others actually were still in contact with Lenape medicine healers, who ended up passing along Native American lore from further out west, saying, no, do not use that. Instead, switch to things like desert parsley or lomatium, which will allow the temperature to continue to be a little bit higher, so that your body's actual reaction can be very, can actually heal itself. The bigger issue here, now I got my dad's voicemail right in front of me here. The bigger issue is that this may actually apply now to COVID-19. I really haven't been keeping up as much on this, but we've heard things like ibuprofen can actually make it worse, and I've heard that Elder, by lowering your temperature, could also make it worse. And so it's a real let's see. I actually use Niagara because that's the one I have. regarding which type. Susan Troxel DeWitt asked, is there a preference to the Niagara species? I use the Niagara species because that's what I have. If I had canadensis, I would use canadensis. I have no real problem with either one. I mean, obviously, the lure from Europe that was brought over here applied to Niagara because I was the one that was over there. But the two, they can be used interchangeably according to our lore. All right. But anyway, so with elder, we need to be careful not to look at it as a panacea and use it so much that it's that we build up a tolerance to it, or that we're using it for inappropriate diseases, whatever. It's really something that needs to be. Did I write about that one on the influenza and the grip one? Sophia just posted a link to one of our articles in Pflanzenheilkunst.com. You might want to check that one out. All right, so any questions about elder, please post in the Facebook group, because I can't quite see what's going on for the most part on the screen here. All right, number 3, wintergreen, brushte, which I can't pronounce all the Latin names here. Gaultheria procumbens, and Chimaphila or Hemaphila umbellata, which is Pepsissowa, otherwise known also as Gelwasserkraut, yellow water grout. All right, wintergreen. One of the biggest uses actually among the Dutch for wintergreen was in the form of what we call tea berry, which is an edible fruit used in Dutch food for all the way from pies to ice cream to chewing gum. You'll still find this stuff here, and quite honestly, I have to tell you that until I really exited the Deicherei and went other places, I didn't really realize that other people really didn't know what some of this stuff was. If you've never had tea berry ice cream is the bomb. But apparently it's not widespread outside of Pennsylvania and maybe Ohio. I actually don't know. But it's good stuff. And the tea berry chewing gum, which the flavor doesn't always last very long. It's kind of like fruit stripe. You need like 6 pieces to get the flavor for a bit. But the tea berry chewing gum, we grew up with. That's what our aunts and uncles would kind of hand us. That's what we used to chew in church, would be tea berry gum. But it is believed that at one point the other sacred tree that was in here was hazel, but that the wintergreen tree kind of moved into that spot during the colonial era. For what reason? I think the primary reason is wintergreen oil, but hazel definitely has a lot of positive uses. But I think they still make tea berry gum. Somebody look it up. But see, traditional uses, or for back pain, sciatica, rheumatism. The oil is used for cellulitis, liniments for sore muscles. Wintergreen water used to be drunk for internal wounds. Caution on that one too. Caution on imbibing wintergreen oil. External poultices for wounds and sore spots and bruises. And also as a mouthwash, which I confess I actually have used it as a mouthwash myself in the past, like the past 2 years. Wintergreen. Now, if you grow wintergreen, which it should grow really well here, but for some reason I think my soil is a little too rich in some spots, and it didn't make it through the summer. I think it would be better off planted, I think, in November than in August or any time during the summer. One of them does still grow up in my cemetery, but the leaves get collected in May. Do not use internally if allergic to aspirin. Big hint there. Disclaimer. Same disclaimer that Sophia posted earlier. The essential oil should never be taken internally or applied externally to children. The spiritual uses, the strewing herb is to prevent hexes. Strew it around your house, strew it around your property, strew it around a line if you think that a person who means to do you harm is going to come into across your threshold. You can block that threshold with strewn leaves of wintergreen. Stern is a very stern but approachable plant spirit. I've actually talked to this plant spirit before on behalf of clients who had issues with lumbago, and the plant essentially did intervene, but was essentially saying, you know what, this guy's got to get off his butt and do some exercise. So kind of stern but very approachable. Moving on to slide number 18. Where's the birch? Because birch also seems like it should be in this list, but sweet birch and tea berry both have wintergreen oil. So I do think that one of the reasons that birch is not on here is because wintergreen is far more accessible from tea berry. Also the edibility of tea berry, the fact that you can actually eat the berries is and I think that's something that kind of plucks it over the edge. And there are many herbs that have sacred uses. There are a whole bunch of herbs that could actually have ended up on this list. Birch water and birch beer became so commercially available that I think that it kind of lost some of its sacred status because it became much more of a commodity. Even today, wintergreen, like I think most people's experience with wintergreen is in wintergreen lifesavers. I don't think it's really quite as mystical to people as it used to be, but birch is definitely more common. When you see a tea berry, people are kind of like, oh, it's a little pink berry. It's really, it's actually really pretty berry. But a lot of people are afraid to eat it because they think it's poisonous. All right, so anyway, that takes us through up to the end of the woods thing. I am now going to see if there's any questions about these three herbs that we just covered so far. As soon as I get into the Urglaawe group here. I'm in the Urglaawe group. I'm sitting there watching myself on video. That's hilarious. Let's see. Yeah, Clark. So they do still have a good. That's a Clark's Tea Berry gum packs. Let's see. Back in the Urglaawe. Any other questions here? Where's my questions thread? Okay, we have a whole bunch of things here that, they're all... Sophia posted the disclaimer and the link to the grip article, and Larry posted, and Trezier and Larry each posted the Clark's Tea Berry gum packs. So yes, they still have those. Matter of fact, I think we ought to start to reacquire them and continue to encourage them. I want to look up where they're made. Clark's Tea Berry. And they've probably been acquired by somebody else by this point, but Clark's Tea Berry. It came from Pittsburgh originally. So yeah. Okay. It was originally from Pennsylvania. And it definitely was something that caught on when I was a kid, that we chewed that all the time. All right. So there's no other questions, so I'm going to move on to the fields, the felder. So the three that come from the fields, we're going to start with number 4, which is cinquefoil, fingergrout, which means five finger kraut. Okay. So this is the potentilla species. I actually have a whole bunch growing right outside right now, and their little pretty yellow flowers are growing right now. Now, this is supposed to be collected no earlier than May 15th, or Ascension Day in the Christian Dutch lore, for its primary medicinal use, which is to combat diarrhea or dysentery, which it looks like I might have dysentery spelled wrong. The helping hand may be collected at any time for use in cannings, settings of tincture, workings, etc. The thin finger grout kind of looks, some people think it looks like a marijuana plant, other people think it looks like a hand. And the five finger grout, you essentially put the plant onto things that you are working on, and it's supposed to continue to put your energy into the into whatever you're working. So, for instance, if I have actually, I think I'll use Victoria, because I think you used this before. But when you do your canning, or when you do your goose stock or whatever, putting the she can continue to work on one jar, and then put on it a thin finger grout, which will continue to give her energy that it has absorbed from her body onto the can, and while she works on other ones. And that thin finger grout is also supposed to be able to do something else that I've never actually seen it do, but it's also supposed to help continue a little bit of motion within the jars, so that that if you're constantly kind of sort of stirring something. Never actually seen it do that, but I have used the plant on there to continue to imbue my energy or my whatever wishes I wish to put into the jar or the can or whatever it can do. So you can essentially give Fingergrout an instruction for it to continue to pass on even after you are now on a different project. So tinctures are big with that. Any workings that you're doing, canning anywhere, that you can put the 5-finger grass and tell it what to do, and it will continue to do it. With salt and honey, it makes a good poultice for wounds. Some people get use it for sore throats, gargling the tea. I never actually tried that. I actually have tried it for bad breath. It actually works. It works a little bit with if you're taking medicine that kind of gives you the dry mouth. It can actually help a little bit with that. I think thyme works better, but Fingergrout actually works pretty well with that. I'm now on slide number 21. Let's see, spiritual uses. This is a good herb. You can make a water of it or a tea of it with to clean ritual tools. And theoretically, some years Fingergrout does not go away. For me, it did this year, although I still had some small ones. What I should do is I should actually collect some of it, up on May 15th, and actually keep it around. And then prior to our Entstauning ritual, when we grease the tools, I think that it'd be good to remove things from certain tools if they've been tools that have been dealing with unwanted energies and things, especially perhaps the Braucherei knives, because they're oftentimes cutting away inflammation, and so we might need to clear the inflammation off of that before we grease the tools again next year. Let's see. So then it's also supposed to prevent forgetfulness. I've heard it referred to as when you're forgetting something, it taps you on the shoulder and reminds you. You're supposed to rinse. There are actually, believe it or not, there actually are hexes that are supposed to make people forgetful, and so you're supposed to rinse with an infusion of tea 9 times to break hexes. That means the person itself, him or herself. And let's see, it has an association with Tziyu, or Tyr, Tyr is known by our name. He's supposed to be carried to stand before authorities to win cases. So if you're a lawyer, you might want to have a little bit of Fingergrout in your pocket, and it is supposed to represent Tsiyu's hand. Now, the funny thing about this is, generally speaking, in our lore, we don't have a whole lot of information about Tziyu having lost his hand. But this kind of implies that maybe it does. Or it could just be representing Tsiyu's hand anyway, without necessarily his hand being disembodied from the rest of him. 1 second, please. Okay, so let's see. Next up, it also has an association with Berkta. I don't know why Berkta's on it twice. It's supposed to be Berkta Holla and Erda. I think this Berkta's been on my mind a lot lately. But that connection comes, at least in Berkta's case, through the goose foot, because Berkta is supposed to, she's supposed to have one foot that looks like a goose, which is said to come from the splaying that would happen with a lot of repetitive motion on a spinning wheel. And the significance of the May 15th date is more associated with Holla and Erda, particularly Erda in this case, because that is the date that all of the tender plants are supposed to be able to go out. It's going to be interesting to see this year what our weather's like, because so far since we've been tracking this, I think every year we've had frost on either the 13th, 14th, or 15th up in the Poconos area. Except last year and one other year we didn't have any. It was warm enough. This year, it's been kind of cold further south later than it normally is, and so it'll be interesting to see if the May 15th lore continues to follow. Remember that Wonnet site ends on at sunset on the 12th, and then that night is when the first frost giants attack. According to our lore, it takes about 12 days for the armies of the King Frost to get sent from the northern leaves down into Mannheim here. So that lore actually is fitting. But let's see how it sticks with the May 15th date, especially since most of us thought that everything was like 3 weeks in advance. But all of a sudden we're having weather that's actually from earlier, like actually this is late for this cold. It's not too bad, but it could actually be dangerous to put some stuff out still. All right, so let's see. Our next bachelor number 2 of the Fields and Felder is catnip or katzagraut or nepeta cataria, which is the common catnip that drives many cats crazy. And I'm on now slide number, can't read my number, it's number 23. And it is traditionally used in female medicine, so to speak. Obstructions of the womb, feminine itch, infertility, and however, it is contraindicated for pregnancy. So disclaimer, don't use catnip for anything medicinal, whatever, like we're talking about here, without talking to your licensed medical professional first. Because really, especially if you're pregnant, you don't want to be messing with a lot of these herbs, even herbs that are supposed to help women and females with managing their bodies. Contraindicated in pregnancy means stay away from catnip if you're pregnant. So the stomach ache, that's actually probably what its widest use is. Zum Bauchweh Katzagraut tee, which is literally for a stomach ache, catnip tea. I actually have taken that before, and it does help. It helps particularly with gassy kinds of conditions up in the upper stomach. I think it sort of helps the most with. Combined with elderflower and honey, it's supposed to be a good little recipe for colds and flu. Again, same disclaimer with the cold and flu. Not every flu is going to necessarily respond well to elder. It's an anti-flatulent. It can ease colic. It can be used as a liniment for rheumatic joints. Ointment for hemorrhoids. Never made one, but there you go. Bug bites and repellent. That one I've actually used it as. We actually have made a bug spray here that had catnip as its base, a catnip tincture as its base, and then it got infused into oil with So we had catnip tincture plus catnip infused oil, and we actually kind of took that and started making a bug repellent out of it. It was actually pretty effective. It had a lot of other good stuff in it. I can't quite give it away because it's proprietary and I might get killed. But it is effective. Catnip actually is a very effective bug repellent. Catnip essential oil is actually fairly expensive. So that's why we stuck kind of with the tincture for that. Spiritual uses can be burned as incense during magical rites to increase action levels. So this is supposed to be like a magnifying herb. That is what that means. That during magical rites, the burning of incense is supposed to be able to magnify whatever it is that you're doing by 3 times at least. It can increase the effectiveness of hexes. Same thing. A simple hex magnified by catnip can actually become 3 to 6 or 9 times stronger than it would be if it were just normal. Let's see. Then spirits intercede on behalf of pets, particularly cats. Okay, so now we're talk a little bit about Frauve here. The relationship between Frauve and catnip is relatively recent, and I actually would say that we probably were the first ones to really do it, except for the fact that one of my more recent interviews actually. Because when I actually was kind of pursuing stuff on Frauve, I asked somebody, what do they think of herbs are sacred to Frauva. So of course catnip, because Frauva definitely has the cat relationship. So I starting to think that even though they tell you leave something out white for the cats at Grumbiera which is the March 17th, which is our day where we honor Frauva. I think that putting out some catnip at that point would be really good for honoring her. All right. And then we have number 6, which is ground ivy, Grundelreva, or Glaucoma hedracea. Now, those of you who watched the Sacred Space video, this is the one that fell out. We had it in all our previous versions of our PowerPoint presentation, but then when we actually had the final version, somehow it was gone. And so at some point, we still need to flex in the discussion points on ground ivy, because it's a good plant. It's growing right now. It's in full flower right here. It is a mint. Let's see, what was something else? As is catnip. It is in the mint family, and its primary use is for coughs or bronchitis. This is slide number 28. Okay, coughs or bronchitis. It's supposed to be good for ailments of mucous membranes of the ear, nose, and throat. It can dispel worms from humans. Decoct a few handfuls in wine and drink warm as a diuretic. There are other herbs that you can use as diuretic without the wine, but that's I think that might be Christopher Sauer's advice from the colonial era. The traditional use is boil in wine and funnel into a ringing ear. And I think that one's Sauer's too. I would be very careful with that. Disclaimer, don't go sticking stuff in your ear without talking to your doctor first. Disclaimer. This is, I'm not a licensed medical professional. I am a Dykes folklorist, herbalist. We know a lot, but just talk to your doctor, please. Kidney stones, it's also used, disclaimer, grind into a powder, add an equal amount of white sugar, add a few pinches to ground ivy tea in the morning and night. So that, you see a little bit of kidney stone, grind what into a powder? You're supposed to grind the Grundelreva, not the kidney stones, into a powder, add an equal amount of white sugar, and then add a few pinches of that into ground ivy tea in the morning. So it's not the kidney stones you're adding. Although if you really want sympathetic magic, if you have access to kidney stones to grind up and put into a tea, that would definitely be very sympathetic magic-y. Let's see what else. Well tolerated in humans. It actually is one of those things that people still often give to children. Victoria's saying it is also useful to replace hops. Ground ivy replacing hops in home brewing. Okay, good. Some remedies relate to livestock, but other sources list ground ivy as being toxic to livestock, particularly sheep. So I would be very cautious in giving it to livestock unless you actually know whether it's safe or not. Now, this is going to come with another disclaimer. Used in hexery to identify the person who hexed you. Disclaimer, because people have actually died over this sort of thing. There are several different many different methods you're going to come across if you read various pieces of Dutch folklore that tell you how to identify the person who hexed you. It's a very dangerous game to do this. And many browkers will not even tell you, even if they have a sense of who it is. Actually, many hexes won't either because, again, if there's even the slightest chance of there being a mistake, it could actually end up being fatal. More than one person in relatively recent history, like, within the last 80 years or so, has been killed by someone who believed that they had hexed them. That's how the whole Murder Hollow thing came in. And there was another one that I was reading about another one earlier today, where somebody thought that his neighbor had hexed him, and he ended up being told that, like, some divination thing told him that she was the hex, and he ended up killing her. I reported here, as an interesting factoid, and as an example of the relationship of the plant spirit to humans. There's just multiple methods for ground ivy divination of the person who might have cast a spell. All those that I'm familiar with require that the ground ivy be taken from an undisturbed stand on the land on which the person lives, not necessarily owns, but lives. So if you have a stand of ground ivy, like I have a stand of ground ivy out here, it's not a huge stand, but I have a much larger stands in the park near me, but that would not work because it has to be a place where the ground ivy has a relationship to me, which is here at my house. It's undisturbed because I haven't done anything to it, but if somebody else comes and pulls even one sprig of it up, that is now considered disturbed, and the ground ivy will not help you. Ground ivy is a little bit. It's a very sweet spirit on the one hand. It's a little bit, especially if you're doing divination to find out who hexed you. The ground ivy is going to be a little strict on that sort of thing. The plant is negotiated with then, and about what the plant's going to get out of it, and the spirit of the plant is asked to intercede. If the plant agrees, then several clippings are taken from one single plant in the stand. So if you have multiple plants on the stand, only take it from one. One sprig is then assigned the title of Haupt, or chief, and a bundle is worn on the outside of the clothing while going around regular interactions. So from one plant, you can take several clippings. One of those clippings becomes the Haupt, or the chief, and then you wear the whole bundle on. Usually people would wear them like the lapel, so like the buttonholes on the lapels, and going about their regular interaction. When segments begin to fall from the bundle naturally, I just lost my spot. Naturally, you're supposed to follow the direction toward which the farthest fallen sprig points. And so that's supposed to be guiding you and telling you essentially that the person is, the person who hexed you is in your proximity. And then when the Haupt one, or the chief one, falls, the hexer is within close visual range, and the sprig is pointing toward the hexer. Another form of it involves making a rope of ground ivy and hanging it over a walkway. Now this one allows for much wider cutting, and it doesn't necessarily need to be all from that one stand. The rope will block others from passing through, but will drop for the person who committed the hex. So, but anyway, there are others too, but I put a personal forebode on some of those because some of these things are just very dangerous to be messing with, and if you get the wrong person and they are convinced that the ground ivy pointed at that person, and believe it or not, 80 years ago that was enough for a superstitious people to actually lose it and actually do follow through on this sort of thing. So again, just be careful. So anyway, moving on to the next one, which is we're going into the garden, or the Garda, which is all three of these are mints in the mint family. The mints are generally allies. This is slide number 28, and we're going to start with Whorehound, or Adon, or the Marubium species. It can be black, white, several different species will work. So moving on to slide 29, although other species of Whorehound may be used, white Whorehound is the most widely utilized. It's used for opening blockage, particularly the lungs, but elsewhere in the body as well. I have heard of people using this for COVID. I don't know whether they've been successful or not. I'm going to have to get in contact with some people. Cough, particularly when mucus is obstructive, and bronchitis. And then here you're seeing Whorehound and ground ivy, both of which are mints. Can be might be remedies or aids in the against COVID-19. When I actually had it, which I now know I did, I wish I actually would have thought of some of this stuff, but I was too busy being sick. And again, we need to do research to find out whether or not it might help or hurt, because there may be something else in the Whorehound that might actually expose the person to more danger. So until we actually know more about the COVID-19, I'm reluctant to actually say that it should be used, but it theoretically could be used. That's disclaimer again. So Sophia posted a disclaimer. The traditional use is against tuberculosis, which also has the cough. It is, though, contraindicated in those with kidney or bladder issues. So if you have kidney or bladder issues, just steer clear of Whorehound. And it's supposed to normalize the heart rhythm. Slide 30, it is often consumed as a candy, and you'll still find Whorehound candies throughout the Daicharai. I actually think they're kind of gross. If the first one I eat is kind of disgusting, but then I get used to it again and keep eating it, and I can just keep popping them like anything after that point. It's a Whorehounds Yep. What they usually do traditionally is they take the leaf and they candy the leaf essentially, and so the leaf is the candy. Now it's more like the flavorings and elements of it, and some people might actually put some of the oils or whatever. But I kind of like the traditional method of making it from the candy from the leaf itself. Sympathetic and spiritual uses: the herb may be dried and then crushed and scattered to the wind or to destroy any number of health or spiritual issues. So you can actually take the leaf and crush it and blow it into the wind along with actual utterances and charms to alleviate whatever the problem is. The herb is often used as a component in Christian Dutch exorcisms and in Urglaawe purgings. So you can actually use it in house blessings. But yeah, this is the Christian Dutch exorcism herb, and theoretically, have I had to do it this way? I used it kind of once, like maybe back in 2009 or 2010, in a kind of similar manner. And I can't really talk about it too much, but I can say that yeah, it worked. Maybe use a similar manner to expel hauntings. Yeah, it can be used as a smudge. It can be used as herb tea. Always make sure that your person's not allergic to a whorehound or anything. And typical disclaimers apply. It's still up there on the screen. But yeah, whorehound actually has more uses than just coughs. All right, herb number 8 is sage, salvete, or salvia. This is on the Dutch spice palette, as are several of these other ones. This is slide number 32. Salvia hortensis is often called by Theodor Zwinger the sage of virtue, but many sages are used. It's associated with wisdom, hence the English name of sage. Often, once again, associated strongly with female medicine for irregular and light menstruation, to increase breast milk production, and for menopausal dizziness and hot flashes, which, by the way, can also help men too, because men do go through their own menopause, as I call it. And menopause, sometimes you do find yourself with dizziness and essentially hot flashes. I kind of went through that myself quite a bit with my temperature change in my body as I got older. The sage tea, the thing is, I don't actually like the taste of sage very much, but it can be helpful. It's good for bug bites, asthma. Some people actually do smoke sage. Again, disclaimer. Astringent, and the tea can be used as an astringent. Internally, some people actually put sage water on their face. Sympathetic spiritual uses, issues of the mind. And here we're kind of seeing the whole menopause thing with it's supposed to help keep your mind sharp and sagacious, hence sage, as you're aging. Some people I know actually have used it to deal with some of the more challenging aspects of autism that are actually causing problems for the person with autism. And it's supposed to actually calm OCD. I think we need to experiment on that one a little more. But I don't know. I know some people with pretty severe OCD, and I would be very interested to see whether sage actually works. Last one in the garden is a thyme. Otherwise, this specific brand is Dicherte, which is Thymus or Thymus pulagioides. Can't pronounce that, but this is Pennsylvania Dutch tea in English. It's a specific form of thyme, but other types of thyme would work also. Dicherte versus other species. This Dicherte is actually, it's closer to lemon thyme in some ways. Its leaves are a little bit larger. This is also on the Dutch spice palette. That's one reason it's so closely associated with the Pennsylvania Dutch. Its food is medicine. It is a very good supporting herb. It's very good at helping other herbs achieve their work. It's good with cold and flu with lemon balm and elderflower. Lemon balm actually probably should be on this list too, but otherwise we end up with 27 sacred herbs. Then congestion, cough, with earaches combined with other herbs. It's supposed to help with athlete's foot, soaking in Dicherte. It's supposed to help with improved eyesight. I drink a fair amount of this. It hasn't really helped, but then again, the improved eyesight thing came before before these things came along. Supposed to help dispel worms. Foot baths are supposed to be relaxing. Can help with mouth issues, ulcer, and bad breath. That's pretty good. That one actually I have tried. I have sampled with, and actually it does work. There's another one. Oh, it's one of the ones I grow out here. It's not coming to my mind right away, but it's dotted mint. Dotted mint or spotted bee balm is actually higher in thymus and thymol than thyme is, and that also makes a good mouthwash. And thyme is also antiseptic. It's used in all forms. The leaf, the plant, whatever. The sympathetic use is aromatically. It bolsters courage. So if you need courage, you can burn thyme. It's supposed to nurturing of the plant nurtures those around oneself. So nurturing the plant essentially can function in a way as a poppet. If you're nurturing somebody, if you're somebody around you that you're loving, and you're using a little poppet kind of thing, you can also have that person be represented by thyme plants, and then taking care of the plant is supposed to take care of that person. Placing the herb in a door or a window can combat fear. Its spiritual uses, it's purification herb, worn to attract love or lust. Again, aromatically have that in there twice, that the aroma can bolster courage. It's supposed to attract good health, and thyme is actually probably one of our strongest allies. Thyme, lemon balm, and a few others, they are some of our best allies. And I suspect that some of that is because it is cultivated in the garden. Like you're not going out and just finding it. You're actually building a relationship with this plant as a garden herb. All right. See, we're over time now. So I'm gonna have to finish because I want to leave time for questions. We'll pick up and finish the other ones in the next one. I think we're over time. Did I have this till 8:30 or 8 o'clock? I have to look. By the time anybody see. Let's just see our time here. Urglaawe Gebt. Because sometimes we've been running out before, so I didn't want to have empty time. Tonight 7. How long did I say? No, 7, 8. Yeah, okay. So we're gonna end this for tonight. But I'm gonna go here and look before we go. I'm gonna go look and see if there's any questions on the question thread, and then we'll pick up with this on next Sunday. And take it from there, and I'll have some other topic to fill in the rest of the time. Group. We'll find my thread. Any questions? Okay, I see no questions. So nobody has any questions? No, that mugwort that's the next thing that's up, but I'm not going to finish that tonight, so I'll let that mugwort wait until number 9. All right, so there's no question about the stuff that we talked about so far. All right, so what I'm going to do is next Sunday we'll finish with herb 10 or herb 0 and some of the other comments on it, and then we'll pick up with another topic afterwards. All right, well, thank you very much, everybody, for attending, and we will pick up on this later. All right, thank you very much. Hail, Maxima Bessel.